In this segment, I want to talk about the future of money. We talked about the history of money up until this current moment, but I want to focus on this new era, digital money, whether it's assets that already exist or assets that are being created, whether decentralized or centralized. This idea of a multipolar world that Mr. Fullani speaks of is very real as different superpowers begin to emerge, as the United States begins to share market value with other countries. There is a topic of conversation that I would like to bring up. You talk about a new money surfacing. You talk about this idea of it being inevitable. You talk about central bank digital currencies. A year ago, when we were sitting...
When I mentioned that a year ago, everybody was astonished, you know?
Well, when we were sitting in
it came out
in the
of
South,
blue, you know?
And I asked you, what is your thought on central bank digital currencies? And a year ago, you said they are inevitable. And a year ago, nobody...
I told you, get the position now.
Yes. And a year ago, nobody assumed that central bank digital currencies were guaranteed.
No, frankly speaking, no.
Today, we can say that they are guaranteed.
Yeah, sure.
And it's been a short year.
Yeah.
So that means that these things are progressing extremely quickly. I think the pandemic also accelerated them.
Has been a bit backward in the beginning, to be frank. I told you also last year, because many central bank and also I think ECB in the beginning and the Fed were not talking about that. They were letting to the other banks or economists and financial companies to talk about that. But and of course came to be on the safe side. They wanted to be, and they have been like that, and they've been cautious, and they done good to be cautious. They didn't say no, but they said to become a currency, you need some preconditions, and it's okay. 3 main preconditions: means of payment, means of exchange, deposit right. And that was very important at that time, means 6 years ago. But then after, I think the things came much more quicker. And, money is a great engine of the state. That is what money is. So money is very important for everybody. And like Smith was saying, that with money you can be rich and you can be poor. The importance is how do you fulfill your needs and how much you fulfill on the needs. So in this respect, I think we're entering very quick in another era. Maybe, might be, I should say, first of all, was pushed by this initiative of some digital currencies, and then the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and whatever. And the other one, very important, which is not said frequently, it's the financial companies. I had always a dream in Albania since the first day of creation of the central bank and reorganizing the foreign exchange market, that I wanted to see Albania not only banking-wise, I wanted to see a lot of financial companies, like a garden with different flowers. And what I learned from being in this, in the West and in America, getting this market, vibrant market philosophy, and then the banks, financial companies, stock exchange, and that it's always, create you a lot of possibilities, make market much more liquid, And of course, there is a lot of speculation, but it's also part of the game. The financial companies are like the oil in the engine, in my opinion. And I've always pushed here for beginning in all the years to create the foreign exchange bureau. So we gather the dealers there, license them and whatever. And then after, of course, the development of the Forex department in the banks, I will always have seen the financial companies a very important element in the banking and financial system. People didn't, as I mentioned before, didn't mention a lot the platforms. So, which now are getting a lot of place, which now are a reality in the banking and financial companies. You know, they are not banks, they are not taking liability. Many people think that taking deposit it's an asset. No, it's a liability. You have to be more responsible. For that, banks are cautious because they manage the money of the others. And of course, what happened in America, everybody knows, between the Main Street and the Wall Street, and the changes in the laws, and after that, and then the crisis of 2007, Lehman, and whatever. But a lot of things have been done in the meantime to strengthen the regulation, and also now we're working a lot. But the timing which took the financial system to bring, and the banking sector and the central banks to bring in this fintech, you know, with different philosophies, and this platform is very important. I tell you one thing. A week ago, the representative of some platforms from Europe came here, and we introduced them as, with some investors, Albanian business people which invest in many things, you know, construction, trade, very well diversified, and with a good portfolio, and with also project in mind. Good clients of the banking sector, reliable, whatever. So, say talk. And the only thing that investors, so constructors and this businessman here, that had to tell to the platform, to this financial institution, is that they say, listen, but we get this from the bank, the loan. We get the money there, are cheaper than you know? And then you can buy, you can sell here. And so we are okay. We all, of course, we need more money for more projects and whatever. But why to come to you and not to use the banking system, which open the doors for us, and we can do this. When they learn then after that the platform, it's much more quicker. It opens you the door to international markets. In a sec, they bring not only money, but expertise, different companies competing on each other in the prices, in the philosophy, in the quality, you know? And then there is plenty of the mosaic is so great on how to compose a loan, you know, to buy and sell and that and that. And that gives you the outlet not to go and sell and pre-sell, for example, or give in the clearing side, you know, the exchange on that. You do the program, you have tot money, of course, it's a bit costly, but it's quicker, it's more secure, assist you, you know, and compete you and put in the map, which is very important, and attract other investors in the country. And then after, they agree. They agreed, look to the possibilities of new financial area. And that is the future. That's for sure. For that, we need the so-called evolution of money. No, it's evolution of money because it's a time now. Prolonged crisis, high inflation, big debt, and life, it's very quick. So the difference from 10, 15 years ago when the crisis began, it's that now we have more resilient institutions, the banks are in better shape, and financial system. Financial stability is more in place. But the problem is that we have bigger debt. We have big liquidity in the market. So in this respect, we have to be much more careful. We have to fight inflation and also take, with us and push ahead the evolution of money. As I mentioned before, crisis and then pandemia, now war, distortion of the supply chain, and create difficulties in the change in geopolitical side of that. Many countries which are changing the policy, the philosophy, trying to reorganize different markets. Some of them because of the necessity, some of them looking forward. For example, the energy side. Breaking down of the supply chain and creating difficulties in the market. It's opened other initiatives, and the green energy, for example, the green bonds, for example. So the green bonds are a reality now. The problem is the project, because in one side, when you put in the balance sheet a green bond, you have to put a project there. So it's a lot of new things which are also the outcome of the crisis. So crisis creates also opportunities and push you to the new initiatives. For that reason, I think also the CBDC took a lot of new efforts to put in place, and it's very important to push ahead it. Up to now, we have 180 countries which are preparing for different models, the blockchain and the other ones. The CBDC now, it's a reality. It will create better conditions for the execution of monetary policy, for banking and financial system, for the industry, for the money inclusion, for the privacy, and also for the new technology which will come in place and after. So if you look at pro and cons, I think the cons are more to the privacy first, and also to the hackerage, and then you can have problems on that side. But the measures taken from cybersecurity and privacy in the models, I think, are convincing, and the efforts are now putting there. Many people, which doesn't know the model, they see, okay, the central bank will be again. They controlled everything. Now they control also in the same way but they will change the name from currency or paper to token or stable coin, whatever it will be, But it's not true. This is completely another philosophy of money and financial and banking sector. Everything will be much more quicker and much more secure. So, but it's not only the speed, it's that the monetary policy will be executed in a more effective way, not only for timing, but also as instruments going on. Let's see pandemic. Different ideas and different solutions around banks and countries invented or also selected to distribute money. It's okay? A lot of money has been given.
Yes.
But the efficiency were not there, because there have been a lot of agreements between stakeholders, but also the actors of the economy. And some of them, the so-called sovereign arrangement, they were left in paper, were used 20, 30%, because of not having the proper instruments. Now, with the money inclusion, you will have all the account in there. So you can play with new instruments in monetary policy to include everybody in. And include everybody in, your efficiency on using the monetary policy correctly will be much more greater.
Your opinion on this inclusion, though, you can look at it from a utopian perspective of, okay, everybody has efficiency in the markets, but then you can also flip it on its head and look at it from the dystopian side of
course.
Okay, perfect. Now you have
We
inclusion.
accept that. It's a part of the project. Every project needs time to be put in the market.
It's who wields the sword. So what is holding a dictator that wields the sword of CBDCs from saying, okay, now that everybody's included into this ecosystem, that I can just turn off deposits or that I can turn off transactions? Because, for example, let's say I have this
I know what
cash
you're going to
system,
say, yeah.
and I'm like, the government isn't holding me back from doing this to you.
Right.
But could they hold me back from doing it if there was a CBDC, right? In my opinion, the answer is yes, because they could hold it back if I didn't comply.
We're going back to the anarchic discussion we had last year.
Yeah.
With a lot of energy, with anarchy. So panic, comes from non-developed market, from distortions in the market, for a lack of instrument, for a lack of knowledge, but also for illicit activities, But mostly of this, it comes from distortions of the market, comes from non-regulated markets. You need the authority. As I mentioned to you first, nothing comes from nothing. Look at one currency, as you want to say it, not mentioning the name, and put in the T, active and passive. If they have in passive, then what do they have as a contravalue in active? So it's not easy to say. We have to go to the real balance sheet and see how it works. What do they have as a counterpart, as a value, as a counterpart value of them?
But who determines that value? And who determines the source of authority? Because you mentioned authority.
Of course.
So who's the authority?
Without the
central bank.
I think the state will not collapse. We will have the states. The state will be a state. I think so. For the time being, who knows what happened then after, but I think every country is organized in states. And I say that because during the pandemic, which everything collapsed, even states were in difficulties to fulfill their job, their job toward citizens, organization of life, health and care, medicine. A lot of problems came in. The city-states power in Italy, in France, in Germany. I remember quite well, because my friends from Naples sent me a live video when 20 incubators from Milan came to them. And it was not a feast. It was just, I cannot, and I recall it, it's a beautiful thing. Everybody in the window, everybody in the balcony, everybody in the square, fireworks and whatever. And that was because we had some problems in the Schengen area. And some places didn't allow even the medicines to go out. And then create the old roots of the city-states and being effective in the bad times. So the state should be always strong. we should have, and everybody should work that the create the precondition that the state should fulfill their duties toward their citizens. So that will exist. After the flag of the republic, the sovereignty comes to the coin, comes to the currency. So that is a sovereignty of your country. And in the financial world, that is very common. So the best guarantee is the state guarantee still. Of course, it's not like before that state were using that a lot. Now it's much more reduced to do that. But still, you have this sovereignty. And when you work with the IMF and the World Bank, the EU and the other institutions, there is in place, and that is quoted, and you have quotation 1B, BB plus, BB2, and that. How much weighted is your sovereignty? So in that respect, I think the new ecosystem of digital currency is very important, and we should make as much as we can easier, in order to put in efficiency that very big project. And I'm sure that the role of the central bank will be much more efficient and much more appreciated than before. The central bank, for sure, with the digital currency, will be much more transparent. The central bank will be, I should say, liberalized. Not everything will be in the central bank, in the digital currency. The central bank will have, for example, the role, the issuing of the currency. But other things, like the IT survivor, the control of that and supervision, and that will be by other entities, which can be private entrepreneurs, which can be private banks, and whatever.
What if the CBDC is programmable though, and it has a framework? Cash does not have a framework, right?
Of course, I have a framework. Cash.
The framework in the sense of transactional framework. I can. Because I can give you today. I can give you $100 for a piece of candy, or I could give you $100 for any transaction.
Yeah.
What happens in the situation?
But still, after $10,000, you have to report, even in America and in Albania too.
Sure.
For anti-money laundering or whatever.
Sure.
So you have to report. Reporting is always there.
The counter to it is, you look at somebody, for example, like China, right? And China now has the social credit system,
right?
Which you talk bad about the government, they reduce your credit system, you jaywalk, you walk across the street when it's unread. Mm-hmm. And that limits your ability to now operate with the digital yuan. And if you have a poor credit system, well, now you can no longer transact inside the financial system. You're seeing kind of like an outcast of the inclusion because you're operating outside of the inclusion. Do you see some dangers in this?
I see that, of course, there are pros and cons, and they are interesting, for sure. Even in an existing system, we have seen the collapse in the bankruptcy. We had now the Silicon Valley. Who could have expected that? What happened and what we founded inside there, at least what was shown to see, we founded things that couldn't happen in this era. For example, after all the crisis, after all the Lehman and the other one, and then you have licensed that bank, and that bank does the activity with FTX that nobody could survive. They increase the leverage, and after the leverage put as a collateral, and collateral after collateral, and leverage to leverage, and then you have the collapse. And thanks God, it was closed quick, one or two banks and three banks, because in the row has been some other even middle-sized banks on that. So you have always the risk for that. And as I mentioned to you, Having the ability is the responsibility. It's not a capital. For that, you have to be very cautious, but norms and regulations are very important because at the end, it's like the plan. Crash a plan, how many hours has been after that to check in details and responsibilities why the plan. Many people, many people, they go on the streets and accident by cars and whatever. But when the plane crash, there is a lot of job afterwards, not legal, but also technical, to understand what happened. And in this respect, I think in this respect also with money, we have to evaluate, what will bring this other thing. Because it's like a crash of the old currency, But it's a must because the world now is digitally driven. I tell you very quick, one of these guys, which were with us discussing with the platform, and we discussed about this FTX and whatever. And he said, my son is 9 years old. And one day he said, Father, I want to buy something from this. So what do you buy? I want to buy that. Going to trust now. I want to buy that instrument because they call currency, but it's wrong. I want to buy that. And so why that? He said, yeah, but it will go up because the owner of that is a very rich guy, is very successful, and I admire him. And I'll say, I buy something significant for him, little thing. Afterwards, after 2-3 months, up. I said, come here. He said to me, Father, have you seen? That's up now. We could be rich with that, How much is that? Okay, I said, sell the part of the profit, and you keep the other part again there. So we got the profit, or we got the grain in, I said, no. I want to wait because the father was a businessman. He knew that. He didn't know, but he foresaw it. After that, this so-called currency went up, and now he is
Toward nothing.
Toward nothing. Now, the good and the bad of that, what I'm saying. The bad is that the father won. I wanted to win the little one because he chose that. But on the other side, the little one learned what is the confidence. He learned that when you take the risk, you have to check a lot before. And the third thing is that we need to regulate. We need to regulate, and if we regulate, I think we will have mostly of the young generation with us, which are digital, which love to be digital. And for that, I'm optimist.
I'm optimistic, but I'm also pessimistic.
Yeah, you have to be, as I said, in life, you're never sure. Why? Because the market, it's a vivid instrument, in my opinion. It's a vivid organism. And it changes and adapts. And that is the beauty of the market, because market is in continuous changing, innovating, changing, crisis, whatever. And then you learn, adapt, and improve. And this is the market. But now you have one prerogative in place, which is a big one, changing digital world. And if you give the right laws, regulation, expertise, and dimension, we open the world to the digital world. And then the main problem of economies today, one of the main problems, which is competition, now it will be increased. Efficient of monetary policy will be much more efficient. Divise social de travail of the division of work of commercial banks, funds, institutions. Why, for example, in the beginning of these financial companies, many financial companies call themselves trust, only to give you faith. And they say, it's a trust, So the confidence will come after we show respect, for the laws, regulation, and create the infrastructure and the basis for sound and healthy, and we continue to deepen and broaden the market. It's a process.
There's a thesis for Bitcoin,
Right,
as a competitor or a preconceived instrument to central bank digital currencies and to cash.
yes,
Because you cannot make more of it. You have Bitcoin as a macro, and then at a micro, you have Satoshis, which is Bitcoin broken down into fractions of
correct.
a Bitcoin. So in 2008, you have the crash, which, in your opinion, was this caused by mismanagement, or was it caused by regular ebb and flow of the market?
Yes. 2008, it was a big bubble, a 20 years, 25 years old bubble, which people which came after that, they even founded a name, the Greenspan put, which for me was not elegant to say, because that guy was for more than 20 years in power, and he kept safe and sound, not only the American economy, but working closely with other banks, Both hemispheres contributed also to the foundation of the euro and to the keeping the value of the euro. And I imagine the cooperation before, when the Fed and the BUBA were in the market, the Bundesbank, the results were there. So any kind of oscillations in the market, whatever, they try to stabilize the markets. And they did it in accord. Or when the euro had problems in the beginning, sharp decline and whatever, the Fed entered with the ECB to keep the value in place and to be more resilient from the attacks, attacks in the speculation and other things. So, the bubble was created. The main reason is the abolishment of the law, prevent the financial companies to work both as banks. So Main Street and Wall Street were not divided; they make up together, and the big financial companies, they were doing banking businesses, investing, and whatever. So that was the precondition. And then the new so-called new instruments, which have been this composition of a lot of instruments together, with a concept of leverage, it creates this bubble in the houses. And everybody should have a house. Everybody should have two houses, because this shows you how strong is the country. And we deserve to give the people more than one house. And altogether, the bubble was created. It took a long time, but bubbles always, they don't signal you. And Greenspan has a good not only expertise, but a very good expression that we don't enter during the bubble as central banks. We let the bubble finish and then we enter, because we don't have the power to what to do in the middle of the bubble. But the bubble does not signal you, so you have to have the sense, the feeling, because you have to see the statistic. You have to be curious as a central bank, and work closer with the supervision, financial stability, and to know why these financial assets are growing so fast. What happened? Is the real demand or we are creating demand? Of course, keeping interest rates low for a lot of time create the preconditions to increase inflation, but also a lot of money in the market. And as Prince was saying at that time, as long as the music plays, we have to dance till the end, and then we have too big to fail, and you had Lehman and the others. But the duty of the central bank is always to take the bottle of alcohol, of wine, before the people are drunk on the table, so naturally. And that was not done. So until the bubble exploded, and everybody was in. But here does not finish the problem. The problem was the panic and the run of deposit. What happened in Albania? In one beautiful day, somebody say, oh, what happened in this Iowa bank in America will come here tomorrow. And people came to withdraw deposits. I have seen this country 3 to 4 times in running deposit. But that was the biggest one and the most consistent one.
Tell me about it.
It was a real disaster, As I said, we have been not prepared, because we didn't know that would happen. But we have been, the banking sector, the sector was resilient. As I said, we didn't have leverage. Of course, we had a lot of pressure before by International Commercial Bank or the other. You Albania are backward. You are only 60 to 40 to deposit and lending. You should go 80, 100, 120 like the other countries. Leverage is good. It's time to do leverage. Plenty of money. We have what to do with this money. Let's go on. But I didn't listen from that year. I said, no, we'll go like this. All of us, the institution, the central bank, Minister of Finance, and the government have been cautious on that. But the main duty was of the central bank. And we have just set up the Financial Stability Department, and we introduced IT, as I saw, the inflation target. So we are prepared. But nevertheless, the people got panic. And everybody was going to the bank and say, queuing in the bank. We have been gathering, having meeting every hour, a part of telephone with the big commercial banks, with all the bankers. And get information, whatever they want. But it was a running deposit, tremendous running deposit. And could have had problems in some of the banks. If that continue for last, like other countries, for example, we have been, I think we've been very successful. We didn't have any problem in the banking sector. So we didn't close any bank. There was no bank shut down banks and whatever. No. We had this on deposits. We order all the general managers to bring a block of money, cash, like bricks, in front of the windows, so the people will see that. Nobody will go from the bank.
Proof of funds.
Nobody, yes. See my money. I want to see my money.
They didn't want it. They just wanted to see that it was there.
Yeah. And then nobody is going out of the bank. That was ordered from us. Nobody, if they want to withdraw money. You want the deposit? Sure. You want even more amount, big amounts on that? Okay, we can secure you to get it, to do. But when they saw that the money were not finished there, and they saw our communication with the market, what does it mean for us? Many of them brought back the money immediately. It was very frustrating, It was fear because it was panic. And panic didn't came from us. It was just important. And then after we had the Greek problem, which even in that respect, Albanian banks, and what we did is that we immediately changed the law, and the branches of the banks, of the foreign banks, we changed them in subsidiaries. So they have been under the law of the Republic of Albania. So they couldn't get the crisis in them. And the conditions and the health of these banks were much more better than the mother banks. You know, in all respect, even in the bad loans or capital adequacy ratio and the other ones. So, but time were very, very difficult. We didn't have any support like this time on pandemia that the EU and the ECB, you know, gave swap arrangement or whatever. At that time was not known. But at that time, I did a arrangement, you know, with the Central Bank of China, and we had a swap. And we had it before, believe me, we had it before the other big countries in Europe. And that was an anchor. If something would happen, we could use that. So we use domestic currency, they use their currency, yuan, and at the end of the year of the period, we do the settlement of that. So we didn't use that. In fact, I think it's still in place that because the central bank renovated that. But it was a kind of, you know, you have to have something to be secure for a moment to come because nobody knew what would happen there. And but there have been many problems in that time. The Greek crisis came. We were ready for the first time to go to London for issuing of the first Eurobond. And all this preparation were done and whatever, so underwriters and that. And then we went there. We wanted to go there. It was stopped, the plane, because of this ash of Ireland, this earthquake, and that is. So we couldn't go there, and we waited another week. Next week, exploded Greece. And exploded Greece, and we couldn't fly. So it was delayed 3 weeks. So when we went there, brokers said, there is no price for euro. Why don't you go for dollar? We said, we need euro, we don't need dollar. So it was too difficult. And nobody, like us, were also some other countries which were asking, going for the first time the Eurobond to buy that. So it was not the big amount. The problem is that the others didn't have in their, agenda to give money to our countries to do swaps or whatever.
So central bank digital currency.
We have seen that, you know, and how much was that could have been influenced that we have fears that the run of the deposit will influence immediately in exchange rate. But in fact, the free floating work like a security for us. So it helped us a lot. It was a buffer against the attack on the run out of the deposits. But imagine now, during the pandemic, as I said, many people thought how to distribute money, as I mentioned before. Some people say, okay, why don't we do some helicopter money? Also, I proposed that in Albania. And I also had in mind that everybody should be organized in order to get the support from the state. You have to be registered. You have to open the account. That was not so difficult, a small country. And then the helicopter money. And now with the CBDC, we don't need it anymore. So the efficiency of the central bank will be for sure, much more bigger than before.
I agree. I agree in an efficiency's sake, and we'll go back and forth on this point. It makes sense for the central bank digital currency because it seems like the ideal dream for the central bank. Why? Because now you're in a situation whereby...
May I ask you a question?
Ask me.
Do you really, or do people think that the financial system of a country or of the world does not need regulators, does not institutions which harmonize the policy, which supervise the market?
Well, that's the question.
Which support the market? Without the supervision of the banks, we only produce chaos. And not only that, but my philosophy is that the supervision, it's also a very important element for financial stability and for efficiency of monetary policy. Because you get all the information, what you need, not name, not money, but you get all the information in place, how it goes with the money in the bank, how it goes, the lending, how was the deposit, how was used the lending one, what are the discrepancies on that, what are the problems? Have we improve the new laws and regulations in order to be more deepening and broader in the markets, to protect the customer, to know better the customer? So there are a hell of the problems over there.
I agree.
You need the regulator.
But who's the regulator?
Who is managing the demand and supply?
But that's the
Who
question.
is smoothing?
Who's the regulator? And how do you know that the regulator has the customer's benefit in mind as opposed to big corporation, for example? You look at Gary Gensler, right? He doesn't establish a clear policy for crypto. It's very much in the air. Why not establish a clear policy?
We are putting a clear policy.
And how do we know that that policy benefits the general populace as opposed to benefiting?
Confidence in state, in a democracy, is the confidence that is not, you don't trust anybody for life. People change. You know, the vote changes the people. And if they does not do their job, there could be change. And other people will come. But let the progress begin. You know, get the wave in that and push ahead the private initiative, because this was not a central bank initiative. I said the element like Bitcoin, the Ethereum, and the others.
They pushed it. They pushed it too.
They pushed that.
Correct.
Many people
But maybe as a competitor.
Many people were against of it.
But maybe as a competitor.
I was always in I didn't invest in that, you know?
But don't you think central bank digital currencies are a competitor and antithesis to the insurrection?
The beauty of the game,
yes,
it's that everybody should compete. Who survives?
So who survives is the strongest.
Survive. But the evolution let place, you know, for different kinds of institutions to be born. You can have, for example, the currency of one market, of one project, of different projects. It's not a problem. Let's compete it. We have the platform. So you decide, for example, this area will be developed in that and that and that, tourism area, or green energy with green bonds, and then you can create them.
I guess I agree. I guess demand creates
the demand will create that, and then let's compete. You know,
I agree.
Without the competition, there is no efficiency. There is, as I said, it's proven. It was forgotten in the Washington Consensus, and now it was added then after. But the competition is the core of productivity. You can do whatever you want.
And the market will determine whether they want you or not.
Of course, we're talking on the preconditions to be fulfilled, and after, if not, you know.
I'm a skeptic of the central bank digital currencies.
You know, I should be more conservative if you take me only as a central banker, but I have the chance in my 40 years of career to see central banking and commercial banking during the communist time. I've seen the transition from 90 to create the central bank. And then I have been for 7 years the general manager of the private bank. And then I came 10 years as governor. So it means...
You've been in multiple spaces.
Yeah, and that gave me a lot. If I wouldn't have been to the private sector, I wouldn't have been successful as a governor.
Now, let me ask you a
I
question.
wouldn't have even dared to go there.
But don't
Because-
you, if you look at the communist time in
Right.
Albania,
Right.
do you see an issue of this, of a CBDC operating with a communistic
No,
worldview?
come on.
You don't see it?
No,
Why?
not at all. Not at all. The communistic one was one currency, one note. There was not accepted the concept of inflation, and lending facility was quasi zero from the private people, and then everything was planned, was under programming of plan, and there was no competition at all. So the people that didn't have incentives to work, because we go to work to be paid, and that's all. And then after the very close country, very close economy, we ended up without raw materials for the fabrics, for the enterprises, and that was a terrible time. You didn't get anything, and at the end, we didn't have even one truck of powder milk for the kids until the next day. So we lost good part of the reserves due to the foreign exchange transactions. We lost a lot because of lack of money to buy even consumer goods. So and then we shorted the hours and shorted the salaries, whatever. And at the end, we collapsed. So that was a shutdown because there was no consumer goods. All the factories closed. So it was a social unrest and whatever. So and then the collapse of the regime. But in the meantime, it was a collapse, and in the meantime, it was the restructuring, and that what makes all this job very, very interesting and very vibrant. Inside of you, you're like an engine. Every day, you could do everything. You could have done hundreds of things during the day, because time was demanding for new changes, and you believed in that. So we need to believe in that project. If you don't believe in that project, if you don't put in the mind of not only the central banks and central bankers, but of the market, of the business people, of the agents and whatever, because as I said, this is not a project of the central bank. It's a project beyond the state. It's a geopolitical, It's very important. It's an evolution of money. It doesn't happen in one country, in one state, in one area. It's happening, in fact. And if you see, more than 90% of them, which are doing CBDC, wants both. Wants retail and wholesale. And if you see the American draft, it's very, very interesting to see how they will look to the conspiracy and also to cybersecurity and the composition of all this institutions which will handle the CBDC. So it's not like before. The central bank will not have the role like before, which has much more role, much more efficient, but backed by other institution in the meantime, and technology for sure. But everybody should be responsible for that part, so you know what is happening. It's much more transparent.
Is that a question of potentially just establishing a transparent blockchain as opposed to having a centralized currency? Because I mentioned to you last year, one of the managers of the Bank of International Settlements.
Yeah.
Forget his name. He's from Mexico.
He's the boss.
He's the boss.
He's really a great personality.
Let me ask you about
Agustin, Mr. Agustin. It's a great personality.
So let me ask you about him.
And I think he has done a great job as the general manager of the bank for the BIS. It's a great job. And if you see there, it's in June, the last report of it. So in the last model of the CBDC.
He mentions, I'm going to send it to you in an interview. He talks about the programmability of money.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, in some way, shape, or form, we have had a framework of programmability. You were talking about the fact that you have to claim receiving X amount of money or sending X amount of money. You have the traceability of banks. But with a central bank digital currency, and then now the introduction of, you talk about green bonds, or we can talk about the policy of ESG, things of this nature. There is a case, because I also want to play devil's advocate here, and I want to play both roles.
But please not with the persons.
Not
If it's anything that he doesn't know in the financial world is nothing. So
it's more so as a topic of
top of the top. Now let's go for the institution. What do
it's more so the topic of conversation.
Of course, yes, okay.
So he brings up the scenario of programmable money. How do we ensure that, let's say COVID 2.0 comes out eventually, right? Something else happens, something breaks out. A country says, hey, you know what? You cannot leave a 20-mile radius from your house. If not, your money is programmed to not be spent outside of that address. Do you foresee that as a potential complication? Or we talk about the, let's say people want to buy vehicles that are powered by diesel, but now based off of ESG rule or climate regulation, they say, well, you can only use programmable money to purchase electrical vehicles. Do you see that as a form of control in some way, shape, or form?
Instead of limitation, the CBDC will open the windows. The CBDC will be a very open, transparent, and reliable instrument. There is no limitation at all. But let's begin. Let's put that in place because it's urgent. You know how much liquidity we had in the market. You know how that is going on. It's freaky. You know
It is.
it is freaky. You know it's going to 300 trillion, which is 2.5 more than the worldwide GDP. So it's
So we have literally money out of thin air.
you know, the policies were right in the sense that, for that I mentioned to you, Begahout, what he did in Bank of England 300 years ago. The policy was right to put liquidity in the market. And what Mr. Draghi said in London in June 1912, to protect the euro, because speculators has been in the market, you know, and dumping also the bonds of Italy and Spain and the other. And it was very crucial. And what he said, listen, guys, said, we're going to protect the euro. technicals, and we will do whatever it takes. And he said, we have a lot. So he guaranteed that. And the market tranquilized, got a new position, and the euro was safe. Okay? But that expression came after a lot of efforts done before. They couldn't solve it. And now that is a slogan. So when the time of crisis comes, you have to do it. You have to go and give money because the crash will be much more bigger. Of course, we have this liquidity, but I mean the central banks, the Fed and the ECB has been working very well during the crisis. I told you the mistakes could have been much more faster, curriculum, communication of the markets could have been much more straightforward, and the strategy of intervention could have been much more consistent, and graduality, it's a mistake. Central bank, you need action. When you put the injection of antibiotics should have real dose, and you continue until the inflation is done.
I want to ask your opinion about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a fixed amount. No more Bitcoin can be created outside what the program allows, X amount of million Bitcoin in circulation. This means that it is a deflationary asset in the sense of purchasing power, or the unit will be worth more over time, obviously compared to what, in this case right now, it's the US dollar. Do you see a place for Bitcoin in the financial ecosystem moving forward?
I think he has a place there. He's been from the first, and I think he, going through crisis, I think he showed also resistance, and but frankly speaking, there are some elements that you say that are in favor of Bitcoin. So I'm not okay with the limitation. I don't like limit.
Why?
Why to limit the currency? Currency is for everybody.
To preserve the purchasing power of it.
Money are born to fulfill the needs of people. As I mentioned Adam Smith before, you can be rich or you can be poor. Depends how you fulfill your necessity things. So in that respect, I think that is not on the macroeconomic, is not a good thing, limitation on that. The other thing, I'm not against it, and I think I'm not against of any currency coming into the picture because it's a new initiative, and let's try compete. But what bothers me is the currency, as I mentioned to you, does not come from nothing. And for that, I show you the balance sheet. If you put Bitcoin here, what do you put as a counter value of it? So I think the creation of CBDC will show resilience. And I don't know, but I don't know that this instrument, Bitcoin, could be long life forever like this.
What if Bitcoin's counterpart is Bitcoin? Because right now we just denominate it in dollars for the sake of illustration.
Cannot tell. I think many changes will come in the picture, my opinion, personal one. Many changes will come, which will really sometimes even will get us, will come out of blue, can also get us out of guard, because this evolution coming not in a peacetime, but in a wartime. I don't say war because the war is there, but the situation of the war in the system. I mean, a situation where it's not normal. I mean, very difficult. A complete reorganization of the markets and high inflation, disruption on the supply chain, difficulties in the with the energy and new markets and whatever. So it's not really a good weather that we think, okay, now in the good weather, let's have a good project. But in the other side, that precondition could help us to go much more faster, and much more, I should say, in harmony and in cooperation between the stakeholders, at least with the major countries and the central banks and that all. And on the top, you have G7, you have D20, you have a lot of organization on that. And I think I'm optimistic things will go for better. But we should stop the war as soon as possible.
I agree with that.
That is a must. It's horrible, and then I think a lot of things will change.
Transitioning out of digital currencies, I had mentioned to you backstage about this idea of companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, and the fact that they do have their hand in, at least in the American side or in the North American markets, they have their hand in pretty much every major company, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Boeing, whether it's CNBC, whether it's Pfizer. You look at the top shareholders, and at the top of the list, you have BlackRock and Vanguard. Now, in some way, shape, or form, they do form policy indirectly because private institution has some sort of autonomy, right, outside of the government. Do you see there being an issue with conglomerates of this size and monopolies of this size influencing policy that may affect the general populace for the sake of the shareholders?
No. These financial companies, as I mentioned to you, they are important element in the market. As far as the doubts we have, this is concern of the legislations and the regulators, that I can say.
So when it comes to globalization, we see there being a big move towards it. In some aspects, it's good. I agree. You have the speed and optimization of supply chain. You have the connectivity of people. But there is a real concern out there for, well, who's in charge of the agenda of globalization and who is the one that dictates the philosophy. I know that you've been to Davos, for example, and that's a place where people go to and they talk about globalization, but you also say it's too late for globalization because it's already underway, but it's too soon to see the effects or the results of it.
Because it will have another phase.
Tell me what you mean.
Globalization will change, and it's changing in effect. All this, I think, situation that we mentioned before, prolonged crisis, pandemic, war, domestic problems of China switching from export to domestic business, whatever, create a lot of problems, and not to forget that China is the biggest factory.
Yes, and the biggest warehouse
in the world, and the biggest warehouse, and also the best influencer of inflation. as soon as the China came out from pandemia, and you saw immediately that tracking inflation going down in Europe. So the globalization, we know what it brought. It brought populism, brought inequality, brought protectionism, and together with all the situation that I mentioned, brought a lot of problems. With the breaking down of supply chain, happens. Things that were not forecasted before or foreseen before. But that influenced also to find other markets and to work quicker in some plans, for example, which were left there behind, which is the green energy and global warming and that and that. And now we live in, I think the globalization will change fares. Will change fares and will be adapted to the new circumstances. But I don't think that will die. We will see. I think what is good now is that due to the distortion of the big supply chain, little countries like us, which are in the axis of the roads and harbors of that, are getting a lot of interest for the big countries, which somehow lost their confidence in globalization. And we could be a very good chance for new supply chains. And it's working here. If I mention you different, we're working for Italy as a supply chain, we're working for Greece. You could be a bridge between East and West. So that could be, I think, another phase of globalization, the adaptation with new circumstances, change the condition and learn for what was done before, mostly in respect of the protectionism, which is known cause a lot of problems, of the populism, and then, worse than ever, inequality. So for that, I am in favor of the digital central bank currency, because that will be much more money inclusion and transparent. This is what I wanted to say about the globalization. But will never die. I think it's adapting a new phase.
I mean, even on the technological side, I think it started from a technological perspective because people are just so much more connected.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid that. Oops. Wrapping up, I want to speak a little bit on the importance of financial literacy. You mentioned that as an important aspect of development. A lot of entrepreneurs are going to be listening to this. A lot of the terms that you've been utilizing, they're not aware of them. A lot of the operating systems as to how the world works are not in their spectrum of importance. What is your advice or your opinion for developing entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs that are, doing quite well to develop financial literacy as a pillar for their success?
We have been doing a great deal in the central bank, and it's also continuing. We began from the scratch, and we founded a very fertilized land, to work. That means that we founded people eager to learn, as I mentioned before, not only in the elementary school, but in middle school. My idea was to publish a book which will give the fundamentals of macro and microeconomy. And then we did that book. Central bank produced a book. It's in English. And we did it in English because we wanted to use also in the region, the education in financial topics, beginning from, as I mentioned to you, from the middle, from the elementary school, and for the middle school, we have been putting them. We discussed agreed with the Minister of Education, and we put that in curricula, so they could decide the students which kind of book they want in curricula, and have also the book of the central bank on the financial literacy. What we learned when we began that is that are a lot of people which want to do that. You mentioned, not only only entrepreneurs and businesses, whatever, but also other people which are not in the list, but they want to contribute. I had a speech in the United Nations in New York, and the audience was great, fantastic, and everybody wanted to take part of it. So if we put that on the digital side, because we did it in the central bank, and we're doing it, I said it, I put it as a third element in our policies in the central bank, the financial literacy, because it's very, very important. And this is an anchor to the inflation targeting for us. We should get more. It's only the organization, the openness, and the results. We should show the results. If you show the results, that could be a challenge. But for me, financial literacy, it's after in the central bank, after the monetary policy and the price stability and financial stability, we had the third one is the financial education.
I agree. I think financial education is foundational for the success of any individual and any conglomerate of people. I appreciate you coming today.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure flying out to see you. I look forward to doing a part 2 in a few years when we see this vision play out, and when we see kind of these predictions that we've made either work or not work like we did last year. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure, an honor to be here. And this kind of communication it's very important, and hope to be fruitful and to have a follow-up. But I'm very happy that I think we are in the right direction. Things are going on the right direction. Evolution of money.
It's one of the assets of humanity that hasn't evolved. You look at technology, it's evolved. You look at supply chain, it's evolved. But I agree, the instrument of money hasn't changed in quite some time. So we'll see where it leads us.
Thank you,
Mr. Fullani.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was an incredible series, Confessions of a Central Banker. Hopefully you guys were able to extrapolate some data sets, some value, just as much as I did over the last few hours. Review it, go over it, and hopefully I'll see you guys on the next one.